Hello and a warm welcome to another episode of the When Dirt Cast, your go-to weekly MFL podcast. There's been a lot going on this week. We're going to have a lot to chat about, so I'm super looking forward to it. As always, I'm one of your hosts, Jimbo, and I've got my good friend Calvinator next to me. One important note, none of what we're going to talk about on here is financial advice. Do your own scouting or hire a director of metaverse football. We've got a very special guest today. Some would call him the Gaffer, and he likes fantasy. Calvinator, do you want to introduce him?
Well, I think you already said his name, FantasyGaffer, but he is an expert, I would say, in the field of transfers. He has written about them extensively on his Substack. I guess a lot of you have already read some of his articles. So I call him the Fabrizio Romano of MFL, who can say, here we go. So I maybe should say, here we go. So welcome, FantasyGaffer. How are you doing?
Here we go. Let's get it done. Thank you guys for having me on. It's been a very fun to listen to you get this off the ground, listen to all the guests you've had. I'm happy to finally be counted among their number.
Yes.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Great to hear that. Yeah, so with you, we're going to talk about transfers because this market has been pretty hot, this transfer window. And the transfer deadline is approaching. We're recording this on Sunday the 11th and 15th, right? Is the
15th is transfer deadline day, yeah.
So there might still be some transfers happening in the coming days, but I think the big moves have already been made and the season has started. So we're going to talk about everything related to transfers after our update section. But first, of course, the updates. So let's start with our personal journey. Maybe, Jimbo, we can start with you. How has the season been so far? 3 matches in?
It's gone all right, you know. For the Wyverns, we've played 3 games and we've done everything, really. We've won 1, we've drawn 1, and we've lost 1. So we've done everything. So I've gone from, I think we drew the first game, then we lost, and then we won. So I can't really expect...
Have you missed a penalty kick? Because I saw that was big in the chat this weekend.
Not in this tournament. I have previously, or not in this season, should I say? Yeah, I saw that was it Duff asked if anyone is, or was it Eric?
Yeah, I didn't.
Someone was asking in the comment here in the chat. They're going to get slated for that now. But someone did say, if anyone missed any penalties? Maybe it was even Phil. Someone said, but yeah, you're right. So far this season, we've not missed a penalty, which is good. And then my second club, we're played 3 and we've won 2 and we've lost 1. We played, I can't remember whose team it was. I'm just going to load it up quickly. We played Obi-Wan's team, and he just absolutely battered me in terms of stats, but I beat him 5-1. I had 11 saves from my goalkeeper with an XG of just over 2, and somehow beat him 5-1. So that was pretty good. But overall, you know, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with my teams so far this season. Let's, you know, see how that continues, because in my Iron League, I think I might slip down quite quickly, and so yeah, it's going all right for me. It's going well. A solid 6 out of 10 for the first 3 games of the season.
What about you, Gaffer? How's your season going?
Can we only talk about the good ones? My gold league.
Feel free.
Yeah, thank you. There we go. So I'm top of the table with 2 wins, 7 goals, 4, which is really the thing that I'm really watching in season 0.4. I'm trying to figure out how to set my tactics so that we're maximizing our attacking output. And it's a pretty competitive league. I mean, all things considered, it's got Guitarro side in there. It's got one of Bill's sides. So that's Douala from Cameroon is in there. Thankfully, I'm not running up against that Bordeaux team that they've put together. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty solid league all the way around. Wilbert's got a team in there and everything else. So to be at the top of that one is pretty fun. And I just beat Hurtis Goldfeather's team 2-0. So it's that might be why they're trying to sell now. I'm going to take credit for that.
Yeah, I also beat him 1-0 yesterday in a game which statistically I shouldn't have won that game.
I was checking the French chat, and he was a bit like rage quitting, like these upsets. I think your match was in there, Gaffer. Like it was like too. Maybe it triggered him.
Baby. It was beautiful. I love it. But listen, I mean, look, we all that wasn't an upset. I mean, those teams were pretty evenly matched. If you look at like the XG, we were within like half a goal of each other. So like 2-0, we were at home, whatever. The one that I want to complain about is the one I already posted about in the competitions channel over in the Discord, which is where my team held like 65% possession and posted 0.08 expected goals.
Yeah.
0.08 on 65% possession. That seems a little off.
Just refusing to go beyond the halfway line, basically. You just sort of just sat there, possession camping in your own half. Or the one shot you had was like a 35-yarder with just wayward.
Yeah, they hit the ball, boy.
It sounds like one of those boring matches where the defenders just keep playing the ball to each other like the whole time.
100%. It is a group stage match when the group has already been decided and no one wants to get hurt and no one wants to challenge anything. Yeah. And not the second match of like a brand new season. Anyway, that's the only complaining I'm going to do until the next question. So we're going to get that out of the way for now.
Good.
Calvin, how's yours going on?
Not very good, I would say. Well, like Black Sea has not won yet. Casablanca Corsairs have not won yet. A bit unfortunate sometimes. I have my team, the Corsair Cove, that's a bit experimental. I'm playing 5-2-3 there with some wingbacks and wingers, and that was a team I really focused on, and they won their first 2 games, and then the third game they lost, but based on XG I should have won that easily. So a bit unlucky there, but at least with the XG we can see like they should have won and they were playing a great game. So I'm happy that team, that I was put a bit more attention in, that they're doing so great. So that's a little golden nugget there, that some hope.
Okay.
Now hopefully Black Sea and Arango etc. and his friends will also start doing well.
A lot of football teams across the world have slow starts and sort of push through after that. It's just, maybe the pre-season fitness, tests weren't quite good enough. It takes a few games to get back into it again. You never know.
No, exactly. I'm also not worried, and it's too early to tell if it's really...
We'll clip that when you're sliding bottom of the league without a win after 10 games or something. Not worried about it. We go again next season.
Yes. No, but it's okay. So not too much to complain about. All right, let's talk about some dev updates. So the engine, some fine-tuning has been done for the shooting. So that is a little bit better in the simulation, and this will be deployed next season. Also an improved game viewer in the testing environment, so they can test a lot of things much better. I think JC, he keeps working on testing these player ratings. So soon we'll have an individual rating for each player after each match. He's been testing with the algorithm. And also, this is maybe important info, that the team from next week will start working on player progression. So this is a big topic. And when player progression is there, we might first, get our first real seasons eventually. The other big thing is translating the app. A lot of effort has been put into that this week. About 80% of the text has been swapped to translation keys. So this will enable them to easily use like a lot of... different languages, make it available, the app, in a lot of different languages, so that's great. Also, some work on the product tour for the onboarding of new users. So both things will help a lot with onboarding new users. And some bugs were fixed, such as the Twitter bot, the sales bot. We saw some duplicates in there. And fatigue.
We saw like half a day just of this.
Let's say a few.
You're like, we doubled the population of Ukraine in like 3 minutes.
It took me a while to actually figure out it was actually like a bug. I thought, it's just Bosco got another one of his like Ukrainian sprees again. I went, hang on, this is the same player like 12 times. It's just
a lot of cousins. That's all it is, really. That's why we need hometowns in that data. I know you kind of, and I appreciate that you prioritize sort of based on existing users and highlighted the dev update for the work that's being done on engine and things like that. But for me, the 2 biggest dev updates were the ones that you mentioned at the very end, which is the translation for language and also the onboarding new user experience. I mean, part of what I think we're going to talk about today is, the evolution that we've seen in the transfer market and in the sales market. And part of the difficulty in trying to weigh what that looks like, both from a historical perspective and moving forward, is the influx of the player pool, right? We saw a large number of new cards get issued, get sold, and that makes a lot of sense. We want the team to be well funded. We want to make sure that they're comfortable and confident that they have enough runway to make this project work and get this game to a place where all the users are happy and the whole team is happy. But we didn't see a corresponding number of new managers come in. We saw a lot of sales of stone clubs. We saw a lot of registration of sales clubs, but proportionally, those weren't new. Those were not overwhelmingly new users. And so for me, seeing those two updates were like the most heartening part of that particular Friday update.
Yeah, no, in terms of like really new users, I think it's more organically, right? You see like maybe 1 or 2 free guys every week new in the sales bot. And also some people who've become very active over the past weeks in general in the Discord. So it's not indeed like, like a lot of new users, but it's also nice to see the organic growth. But this, what you said, like this update will really help to onboard way more and to have the app in different languages. So yeah, great moves.
I've got a quick one on the translation. Does that mean, I don't think this will be the case. I'm maybe just throwing it out there as a bit of an outlandish one. What happens if like team names get translated and then suddenly someone who's done like a bogus translation comes out and it's like something horrendous?
You're talking about the NFL equivalent of the proliferation of Japanese character tattoos in the late 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, no, obviously it won't happen, right? People's names aren't going to get translated, but it would just be funny if someone did like a translation and they thought it was something funny, or not funny, I thought it was something legitimate, and it turns out it's actually a horrendous Google translation job, which means their team name isn't now like,
it means strong in water. It's like, no, actually, it means sad kitten.
Yeah, you're just like, something along those lines, yeah.
It would be funny though, yeah. One other really cool thing in the dev update was, of course, the 2D visualizations, right?
Yeah.
So you guys looked at that. What do you thought about those?
Yeah, it's great to see them again, because I feel like we've not seen them for like I say, last year's, I guess the easy way to put it, but, 3 months ago, last time we saw one, and it was great, and it wasn't just one, it was four different ones, including an own goal, which I made comment on. I thought, if that's my own goal, I'd be pretty fuming. That was the 90th minute with no pressure around him. So obviously, can't bake that in. But yeah, it was great to see those sort of production 22 visual. Obviously, it's not how it's going to look when it comes out, but just get an understanding of how it all sort of comes into.
But that stuff, I mean, and contextually too, when you look back at the dev updates that we've seen since, I would want to say like maybe middle of December, headed into the holiday period and then coming out into the new year, when you're talking about, players having autonomy of thought when they're in their tactics, when you're talking about the free ball development, which I know you all have talked about, but that is from a physics perspective, from a coding perspective, from a game development perspective, when that stuff is already things that are on the whiteboard that have been worked on and are being worked towards. Perfection's the wrong word, but an acceptable level. And then you see those 4 things come out on Friday. I mean, that really hypes you, right? Like when you've been in the project long enough and how meticulous the team is and how layered they are, to be able to see the story from a development side unfold, like to me, that's super exciting.
Yeah, being part of that journey when you see the progression, and it's not like monthly. We see it. We get the weekly dev update, so you can see when we, back before the holiday season, whatever, when we sometimes have 2-3 weeks of seeing these videos, you can see some of the differences in each one. And like you said, being part of that journey and sort of the hype, as you put it, when you see these updates and you see the developments, it's really exciting. And I think we've got, not to get too excited, but a big year ahead of us with some of these bigger pieces coming in as well.
Yeah, and it really shows you that it's like it's in the making. It can be released pretty soon, but we know the team, they don't want to rush it. They want to do it good, right? So they want to do a good job.
Yeah.
But we know like this is something we can see, and then maybe they turn the grass green and they they make the guys a little bit bigger, etc. But
yeah,
it will look like this, and it's within reach. So that's really
I want proportional circles on the field for how tall they are in meters, just so I can see like Zimmerman is like literally like 40% bigger, wider around than like a guy who's like 5'4".
Let's see. Hopefully the team hears that and they can consider this making circles bigger and stuff. All right, let's move on to season update. So we like to take a look at the Diamond League, and 2 games have been played so far in season 0.4 in the Diamond League. And quite surprisingly, the Meta Mercenaries have lost their first 2 games. Reactions?
Yeah, they are, I'd use the phrase, stinking out the place. I remember watching, I think, the first game where they lost 3-0 to Basil's team, wasn't it?
Yeah, like big loss.
I didn't have Dirk wasn't playing, so I immediately told Ronan, like, no Dirk, no dub. And I think he then played in the second game and they still lost, so maybe that wasn't quite right with saying that. But yeah, there's a few shake-ups, obviously. Eric's team and Londinium, their first, I think when he bought that between season 0.3 and 0.4, right? So, you know, that team's now the only team in Diamond League sitting on 2 wins. And
unbeaten, yeah, only unbeaten.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm liking this. I'm liking it's not going as what people predict it to. I know we're only 2 games in. Don't get excited yet. We've still got a long way to go.
It's also because of the tactics, right? That now with team instructions, it's just way more surprising. And when the team is a little bit less, let's say, quality in terms of players, they can really do an upset like Basel 3-0 with less quality players, but still do that based on tactics. So
now, do you say Basel? Because personally, as an American, I say Basel.
Oh, Basel. Okay.
No, I'm just screwing with you.
Jimbo,
that's very much.
Why am I saying Basil for? I say Basil. Why am I saying Basil?
Yeah, there we go.
I was thinking we've got a TV show called Basil Brush. I'm going, I don't say Basil Brush. It's these Americans rubbing off.
There we go. I mean, it's always ties back to Basil Fawlty, as does everything, right?
Yeah.
But that part of me wanted to hijack your show and just come in and say, like, all 3 of us should talk with our local, like, dialect and slang and just see what happened and if it would be, like, a complete impediment to doing the show.
I'd be like, afterwards, I never understood what he was saying the whole episode.
Well, yeah, as a non-native speaker, like, with, like, American media and British English at school, it's really messing me up always, like, the accents, so I stick to the Dutch accent here. But yeah, Diamond League, a lot of exciting start in terms of, let's say, for the neutral spectator, it's really a good start, I would say. Yeah. It's always fun to see like a massive team kind of trailing, or like Ajax before, right? For the Dutch.
It could be like Ajax, yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Did they lose today as well, by the way?
They also lost today.
Get in there. I saw they're losing 3-0 and then they went 3-2 and I was like, don't you dare come back. And they did. Because I just love seeing the social media chaos from the Ajax fans when they lose. It's
exactly.
It's like Chelsea fans.
So maybe the Meta Mercenaries fans will also go crazy right now on Twitter and see that. Marketplace. I'll do some starters and then splash of the week. I'll leave for you, Jimbo. So. We just talked about like new managers, let's say some new names. Did we see some new users joining the game? And I noticed 3. Petit Lu, he got some players. Fron brought Cremona Stone Club, and Get 75 bought an Iron Club. I never saw those names before, and they also seem pretty, let's say, as new users. So welcome to them. Some active managers. I put here Bosco, ton of Ukrainians, but that might also be because the sales bot was broken.
That's just his weekly thing, yeah.
But he bought a ton of Ukrainians. What is a really big move is that Verblender, he bought 4 Iron Clubs and 1 Bronze Club, like, back to back. So that was a pretty crazy, move.
That was off the back of a big sale from him, I think, as well. That was.
Yeah.
I think
there was some. Yeah. Something going on there.
I think he might have sold a Legendary or something, and then he's basically used those funds to swoop 5 clubs in the space of 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's an interesting investment strategy, maybe. Or maybe he really wants to play and manage those, Duff would, with 16 clubs. And Obi-Wan Nowitzki bought loads of uncommons, also. So he is also very active. I also want to highlight 2 trades. Well, one trade we're going to talk about later, for sure. Euro and Bucks for Life. Well, Bucks for Life received 61 players and a club from Euro. So that's a massive trade. And of course, the Ronin Bitstradamus trade. So Ronin got Frederic Ruek 91 striker, and Bitstradamus got 3 legendaries and a rare. I want to break down this trade later in the episode. And now it's time for Splash. So, Jimbo.
Splash of the week. This week's Splash of the week is Dio. I feel like he's quite a regular, champion of Splash of the week on this podcast. He's picked up a player for $700, so it's a big splash of the week this week. And it's a Dutch player, so I'm going to pronounce it the English way, and then I'm going to ask you to pronounce it the Dutch way, please, Calvinator. The English way of saying this would be Mark Wind, but I assume it's probably something along the lines of Mark Vind, maybe?
Yeah, we say wind also, wind.
Oh, okay, you say wind as well. Easy.
Yeah.
So he picked up, for $700, Mark Wind, 85 overall, 19-year-old centre mid / CDM. Nice pickup from Cincinnati or Profound Soda. And you've also got here the second and the third splash of the week. And you've only put them in because they've got ridiculous names to pronounce.
Yes.
So the second splash of the week, or second up, is Scotto with $430, who's bought this Russian goalkeeper called Sergei Didenko. I'm taking that. And then this
Polish guy.
Yes. I cannot pronounce that. I'm sorry.
I'll go. But this is Guitarero bought a cam for $400, 86 rated, from Poland, and his name is Zbigniew Pawlikowski. So
that's how I had it. Yeah, that sounds right.
Or Zbyszek, they would say in Poland. It's like diminutive name.
It was
so
I think it was more the first name that was killing me off. When you got Z and B as the first two letters, I was like, this is a recipe for an English man disaster.
But yeah,
I mean, we all just call him ZP. Everybody knows ZP, right?
ZP.
It's big.
Yeah. ZP.
But yeah, so nice splashes this week and a lot of activity. Even if we remove the sales spot having a weekly meltdown, lots of activity in the marketplace this week, which is great.
Yes, loads of legendaries trading hands, so that's great to see. And
can I call out a sale because I thought it was an interesting one that got made?
No,
of course, go ahead.
So Dio made a sale to Jamie for Tashik, who's an 82 overall 18-year-old who's a center attacking midfielder, left wing and left mid. 82, dribbling's 88 on that, passing's 81. It's a little outside of Jamie's normal buying. Jamie usually buys a little bit lower and also buys a little bit more well-rounded players typically. So I thought that was interesting and a good price, but it also helped reset like the mid 80s in the teenager market a little bit because we'd seen those prices start coming down. We haven't seen a lot of follow-on from that. So Jamie's buy didn't spark like other like 82, 83s or other 17, 18, 19-year-olds going off, and I had expected it to. So that was a little bit of a surprise both ways, both the purchase price and the buyer, as well as the fact that it didn't trigger as much activity in the market as I thought.
I love that analysis.
Yes.
I love that. We might have to commission you for a 1 minute script I get every Saturday from you just to analyse. It sounds like you've got profiles every manager and they're like average spending of average. What does Jamie spend for an average 82 rated, and then look at the age and then it's that price. If it's above or below, interesting. We'll capture that.
So relatively, Jamie had a splash of the week. Let's say for his kind of. I mean, from Dio are used to that, to big splashes. So, but yeah, that's great info, and more info to come later on because we're gonna talk way more about transfers. So stay tuned for that. First, we have to look a little bit at Dirk, but we already talked about it. I think that he just played the one match. The first one he was benched and they lost 3-0. Second he played and they lost 2-1 against Dio. Yeah. Well, he played no goal, no assist, no yellow, no red. Two shots. Yeah. So, yeah.
Sort of bittersweet.
Not too much to talk about.
We obviously want Dirk to do well, but I've said that Dio's Biscioni Milano would top the Diamond Leagues. It's like, well, he played, but they lost to a team who I want to win the title, so it's a bit bittersweet. I'm not sure how I react to that one.
Well, it is like we cannot say much about it.
Dirk's he's also a slow starter. He's always a slow starter. So yeah.
And apparently, we found out he's like a cup fighter. Like in the cup, he's
a cup merchant. He's like Iheanacho in the FA Cup. Just only scores goals in the FA Cup.
That's Dirk. When it really matters, he comes out. Okay, so why Dirk? We have our top 3 candy bar segment, but we said in Vogon's episode we're gonna swap it around a little bit, right? So Jimbo, what's the plan?
Yeah. So previously, for the last 3 or 4 episodes, we've asked the guests to give out their top 3 candy bars for the Americans, but for the Europeans, it's chocolate. And we got Vogon's top 3, but we thought instead of constantly asking our guests for top 3, we'll play a game where the guest gets to replace one of the top 3. So we're going to get like an ever-evolving top 3 of guests. And then at the end of maybe season 0.4 or, end of the year, we're going to get what is, a community top 3, essentially. So, to tell you what Vogon's top 3 was, at number 1, he had a delicacy called Kinder Delice, which is sort of like a Kinder sandwich sort of chocolate item.
Kinder egg.
Yeah, it looked good. You might want to, if you maybe you don't know what it is, quick Google, because I had to do that as well. And then second, he's got Mars, and third, he's got Snickers. So out of those 3, Kinder Delice, Mars, and Snickers, which one would you like to replace and insert with either your top, your second, or your third favourite bar? Which are you going for?
You asking me?
I'm asking you. Yeah, I'm asking you, Gaffer.
You can kick them all to the curb, man. I don't want any of them.
Oh no! We gave you the rules, and you've got to abide by them.
Yeah. I mean, I can't do Kinder dirty like that. So Kinder's got to stay.
Okay.
I don't need to get canceled by everyone. So what was the Mars one that you all said?
Mars one, yes. Really Mars was second, yeah.
So by default, this is an F, Marry, kill situation, right? So I guess I'm killing the last one.
Yeah, so you're killing Mars, but what's going to replace Mars at second? What's your second choice?
My first overall choice is always milk, is always sea salt coated milk chocolate hand dipped caramel. Like that is
give me the longest one to write out as well.
I'm not even going to give you a brand. I'm just going to tell you that like I will shop that like crazy. Somebody actually got in the DMs. I forget if it was like Mike or Alex. I think it was Mike. And I was just like, "Yo, what are your candy bars? Are you ready for that?" And I was like, "I don't eat candy, man. Like I eat these like one thing that my wife will find for me. She will go on like these extravagant online shopping binges and try and find something that I haven't had, and inevitably something will show up that has sea salt, is milk chocolate, and definitely is caramel based." And the ones that she got me that I absolutely loved were pre-COVID. They came out of this place that used to hand dip them in a clean room. So people used to actually go in like in full. Like I always think of it like the crime scene in Hot Fuzz, where everybody's like just in the big things, except dipping caramels and then wrapping them and shipping them out. And those were the best things I've ever had. And if I find out if I can ask her what the manufacturer was, I will like DM you after I find out. But that type of a sweet is by far number one for me.
Yeah. Okay. So sea salt, caramel, white chocolates.
And then
milk chocolate.
Okay. Milk chocolate. Okay. Milk chocolate.
We put that straight into second. I'm not going to ask for your top 3 vegetables, but do you have a favorite? Do you have an all-time go?
See, now vegetables, I could go like 80 deep. I mean, like we could have like the fruit vegetable debate. We could have the root vegetable argument. We could have like all that fun stuff. I will go.
It's a shout out to one.
I will go. Pan roasted grilled Brussels sprouts.
Ooh,
number
the
one
Brussels sprouts.
favorite.
They're back. The Brussels sprouts are back.
Yeah, I think I got slander last time for saying that in the UK how we don't really eat Brussels sprouts outside of winter.
In fairness, how can you tell what you're eating if it's not Indian food? What do you really know? How are you? If it's Nando's. Indian food, everything else is just kind of one thing, right?
I include fish and chips in there, and then I'll agree with you. Yeah. Indian food, Nando's, and fish and chips is the staple of an English diet, and anything else outside of that is just not suitable for the country, really.
No. I mean, listen, I'm glad to hear nothing's changed since I lived there, and you know.
Yeah.
The Brussels sprouts are outstanding. I do carrots like 20 different ways. Like I'm big on like all kinds of like different like leafy things because you can use them in a bunch of stuff. You can use them to like make other things. You can use them as a base. You can use them for for whatever. Spinach in soups is like a great thing to just add. So like spinach is like pretty high up on my list. Yeah, man. I mean, like we can go deep. You want to just like kill like the whole MFL thing and just go deep on veggies?
Well, we will move on. But what I might ask you to do is I might ask you to actually list all 20 ways that you are cooking carrots, because you know that game where you say like you're lying and someone like how many can you name? 20 different methods for cooking carrots. I think I'm not saying you're lying, but I might call bluff there. That's quite a lot of methods of cooking carrots.
Okay, but like you have to consider.
But from what you said about your pan roasted, fried, grilled, whatever it was, Brussels sprouts, and your 4 different ingredient chocolate, I actually believe it, because you'll say like honey roasted, pan fried, carrots.
Oh, absolutely.
Then it will be cooked in an oven, but the oven's outside, so it's actually a barbecue at -5 ambient temperature. It'll be all these different types of methods.
Yeah, we fly them over to Iceland, we wrap them in like a natural leaf, and we put them in like that volcanic ash, and they will slowly cook over the next 8 to 10 days. Pull those out and eat those. I mean, look.
Okay.
But here's the thing, right? Like you can pickle carrots, which is fantastic, right? Like you can roast carrots, you can use carrots raw. There's like a lot of things that you can do to them that up the quotient to get to 20 really, really easily.
Yeah.
So
good.
They are
we can have a spin-off of the Wendirk, but in Wendirk cooking.
Well, I would say live stream cooking episode.
Carrots also orange, right? They are basically the Dirk of the vegetable world.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. We've got a mascot. A mascot will have to be a carrot.
We should have, with our live event, carrots and Snickers, and then they can pick which one they go for, let's say.
Yeah.
Would be a good option.
Let's move on to the actual main topic of what we want to discuss today's episode, not chocolate and vegetables.
Fair enough.
So, obviously, I'll go on, Calvin. I'll let you. You always do the intro, mate.
Yeah. Well, we already talked a little bit about transfers. We're going to talk in this main segment a lot about transfers. But first, we heard FantasyGaffer already. But we always ask our guests about their, let's say, MFL career so far. Can you give us a short summary? How did you find out about the project? Why did you join? When did you join? Could you give us a little summary?
I joined way back. I don't remember how I found the project. I probably found it because I was doing consulting for like a Web3 live video company, and so I was like kind of deep into that. I had been playing So Rare since like January of 2021. I jumped into like Ultimate Champions really early. I jumped into Club Game really early, and so was broadly aware of like what the landscape for different builds, across different networks looked like. I didn't have anything on Flow. Was looking into the project generally, and realistically, like it was a pretty low cost thing to get into. I mean, I don't know how well the people that are getting onboarded now know. But back in the day, you were looking at packs that were, what were they? They were like a base pack for $11, a rare pack for $38, a Lego pack for $150. So people were buying. I actually went back into my Substack, and I'll tell you some stuff about that like a little bit later too. But I went back, and I think my first article about MFL was on June 2nd of 2022. So we're coming up on 2 years that I wrote that, and I've been with the project since. I bounced out for about 4 months after the first pack drops, just because there wasn't a lot to do at that time. And I had written about it. I'd done some social media stuff about it, and I was happy with my teams. I enjoyed the club creation process. I wanted to get more into the lore, but I wanted to wait to see how the game was going to develop before I got too deep into that. And then when I came back, everything seemed more or less where I was expecting it to be. And the community was built up, not maybe as large as I wanted it to see. And I realized I shouldn't complain if I wasn't willing to put in the work myself. So I've stuck around, and I think been a pretty active presence, and done more or less what I could to help popularize and provide some base level content. So when new people are coming into the project, they have some things that are not just MFL based to go and look at. And that's why this show's fantastic. That's why a lot of the tools like MFL Player, that's wonderful. I know the Airtable is updated by the project, but I love the Airtable. Me and Airtable are like this. So I'm very sad Airtable has not been updated lately. It's like a personal loss. But it's kind of how I got here, and I don't know really where I'm going to be in the future. I pulled a few people in that I've known for, I pulled one person into the project I've known for 30 years. I pulled a couple other people in that I've known for 10 plus years. People that have been around fantasy sports, been around other builds that I've done for games, and they've all stuck around. So I think that's positive, right? I mean, if somebody comes in and they don't leave, they don't want to leave, they don't need to leave, that's good for everybody.
Yeah,
100%.
Definitely. That's great. Yeah, so you already touched on the Substack and you creating some content for MFL or writing about the transfers, etc. And I was wondering, like, I read your latest post and you mentioned like Müller and Hahn and the sporting director and the first team coach and I was just wondering, like, how much is kind of your own fantasy, well, your FantasyGaffer, so a lot of fantasy, I guess, and creativity, and how much are you also, like, in touch with actual, like, the actual managers and you know kind of what's going on there? Like, are you, as a journalist, also maybe reaching out and getting some inside info?
Yeah.
Could you tell us?
As I said earlier, I got into it in part because I wanted to build out the lore. I used to create a bunch of backstories for my championship manager teams, especially when, you got into like the regen players and stuff like that. And, it was nothing for me and one of my friends to go 25, 30 seasons deep in the old championship manager because I'm old and we played championship manager before it became football manager. So that was a part of it for me. I generally create stuff in that vein anyway. I used to head a content team back when I co-founded my own fantasy football game. Used to either oversee, edit, write all the content. I've written for a bunch of outlets about real football as well, including like 442 and Sports Illustrated, which used to mean something, but now they've decided they're not going to publish sports stuff. But that's been like the thing that I enjoy doing. So when I got into this, I didn't care. I was writing about my own stuff. Like one of the first big posts that got like a lot of traction was when I wrote about my sale of Barry to Ronan and who I got back.
Barry Turner?
Barry Turner.
Yeah, Barry Turner. And then like
American Barry Turner.
The pictures of like either yourself made or other community members made. It was like a picture of Barry Turner on the wall, and it was like praying to and all, or like those sort of memes. I remember that time. Yeah, that was. Was that just before the World?
I'm sorry. Are you talking about this picture
yes,
right
that's the
here,
exact one
which
I'm
is
talking about.
Still on the background, stunt on these hoes with Barry Baby.
That's the one, stunting on these hoes, Barry Turner. That is the exact one I'm on about. Yeah.
So you can validate, still unprompted, the background on my screen, my lock screen, and much to my children love that. I took them off and I put on an MFL player and Dexter's Laboratory. Anyway, that was like me just creating my own lore, and that was fun because I don't care. I'm going to create my own stuff. It's my own sandbox, and if people like it, they like it. If they don't, whatever. When I took a break from this, and we can talk about that if you want, it's a little bit boring, but basically, like, I was losing subscribers from my other stuff because they weren't really interested in coming over. And anyway, the most recent stuff that I've been doing, I've actually just reached out to the people. So when I reached out to Ronan and said like, "Yo, I'm going to do this," he was totally cool with it and sent me like just so much information. The problem was the information that I got was like both really one-sided and it's pretty dry, right? It's like, this was my thought process going in. Here's how I did my valuation. Here are the players I targeted. Here's who I ended up getting. That's awesome. Like journalistically, like in my other world, like that's fantastic. I want all that data. In the lore creating thing, like that's not super interesting for me to do unless he's okay with me spinning that however I want and developing something.
How you want to like have it is that content, that entertainment piece, right? Yeah.
100%. And then I said, like, you gave me all this. Are you comfortable with me sharing it with the people on the other side of the table? Maybe you don't want me to disclose to them like what your thought process was going in. And he just said like, yeah, he didn't give about it. So like, go ahead. And I have, why not? I have at any given time between 40 and 50 open DMs with other managers in MFL, whether that's them asking me for valuation.
Hang on, 40 to 50?
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't check today, but like, it's a lot.
The weekend's a bit of a quiet one this week. This is a quiet weekend for me. Only the 40.
It's a lot. I can scroll it if you really want, and you can drop back in.
When someone DMs you, does it go, "Thank you for your message. You are now manager
from
45 in the queue."
To there. So I don't know if you saw that, but
wow.
those were my open ones.
And if you pay for the Substack description, you get bumped like priority support. Is that how it works as well?
That's how it used to work in my other world for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But so I reached out and I was like, just unsolicited. I was like, listen, I'm talking to Ronan. I'm writing about the deal that you did. Here's 3 questions. I didn't even wait for a yes or no. I just sent over the questions that I had for them. Every single person I reached out to like got back to me like within an hour and said yes. And within 2 hours, I had responses. I had a little bit of back and forth. And then I just let them know, like, look, like I'm going to create stuff around this. You don't have to use it as canon. It doesn't have to become part of your lore. But for me to write it, that's how I'm going to write it. And they were all like, yeah, that's great. Go ahead. So from there, it's really easy. Then it's just like, you just create people, you create scenarios, I lean on my own background, my own experience, talking to some people in those roles, trying to understand what happened, and then filtering in just like the regular deal making process. So if somebody says something to me like, yeah, like we traded 10 deals, 6 deals over 10 days. Like that's a really kind of dry thing, but like you can turn that into 5, 6, 7 like little inserts in post to kind of like layer in how that was happening while other deals were happening. And you can create like a more robust picture. Even if it's all fake, you're creating a more robust picture and I hope enhancing the experience of playing MFL.
Oh, most definitely, yes. It basically sounds like your love for sort of that content production with regards to, sports and, these sort of Web3 games, and now come to MFL, it's just second nature to you to basically just add MFL to that call it brand, right? Into that hug.
Part of what I'm going to do and what I'll announce here on this show, and we'll wait to make it wider after, but I'm actually going to split out my MFL stuff from my other stuff, and I'm going to do a dedicated MFL page. And I don't know if it's going to be like, Metaverse Football League 365 or something, and like kind of like crib off their format, or if it's going to be something a little bit different. But I do want my MFL stuff to live somewhere else. One, so that people can find it more easily. Two, so it's really building into the culture and the atmosphere around the game that you can find MFL dedicated stuff, and hopefully that inspires other people. I was one of the first people I think I was actually the first person to ever write about SoRare on a daily basis. And I started a Substack just called SoRare Daily. And that became so overwhelming that I eventually tailed it back to 3 days a week. And I did that for almost 2 full years. I mean, at one point, there was no more content. No one was creating more content around SoRare than I was. And it just kind of like burned me out. And I also realized I'm not built for like short form video and TikTok and all that fun stuff that really appeals to that audience. And that's great. I'm glad that the stuff that I did helped educate people, helped bring people in, helped retain people. And I'm happy to step back. Like, that's great. If I can do that here too, man, I'd love that. I'd love if in a year, in 18 months, I'm writing like one article about MFL a month, but there's like 20 other people that are writing about it on a daily or weekly basis. There's 5 other podcasts talking about it. Like the Discord is popping. Like there's people talking about it on Reddit. There's people, posting their own teams. People are live streaming their own games on Twitch. Like that's how you really turn this game from being what it is into being the experience that I think it can be.
Yeah,
100%.
No, we really talked about it before, right? Creating this universe, creating this vibe, and what we try to do with the Diamond League, kind of create like that more hype around it, that people watch it and get engaged. And yeah, if people start writing, so you kick this off with writing about the transfers and what's going on in the universe, in the metaverse, I should say. And then other people do that too. And we see already on Twitter a couple of new accounts making content. Jimbo and I, we need to step up our game a bit there too. Right? But yeah, I agree. That would be really cool to have way more content, diverse content, and build up that universe.
Yeah.
So to make a transition to our main topic here, transfers, that's of course one of the most exciting things to talk and write about, definitely with real world football and also metaverse football, I would say. So let's maybe look at the Diamond League transfer window. You've written about that, about those deals of Ronin and Theo. What do you think were some of what do we say is the biggest transfer? Let's start with that. What do you think is the biggest move of this window?
Oh man, here we go. I think the biggest deal was the one that I wrote about, that was Unity offloading 5 of the best players to FC Cincinnati. Like that completely reset the table in the Diamond division. Like Ronan and others talked about, Eric as well, like talked about the fact that deal made them re-examine their teams and consider going back into the market. Yeah. It created a lot of it didn't create a bunch of liquidity because it was mostly trades, but it created like the perception of liquidity, and you started seeing other deals get done. You started seeing other sales. And I think it was being built on a little bit by some of the smaller deals like that Scrub made. And I don't mean to say like smaller deals, but, like 85 for 86 players, some one-way trades that clearly have some backroom cash going the other way. The Tristan Renaud deal that B Sellers did, I think is really important to point to as well. I think all of those deals helped. I think this is going to go down as like the most historic winter, right? For whatever reason, we can talk about it, whether it's the updates to positional familiarity, whether it's a little bit of the growth of the game, whether it's the Diamond teams looking at each other and seeing that the competition's been ratcheted up. The fact that there's 4 dead teams and only 8 competing makes that pool a lot smaller. All those things build on each other. And at the end of the day, if you have a move like the one that FC Cincinnati did with Unity and bringing in all those players, not just win now players, but also 16 and 17-year-old players that may play in Division 2, may play in Division 1, that has a lot of impact across the entirety of, I would say, even all the way down to the gold level, because now gold teams are looking at platinum teams and saying, if I win promotion, like, I'm going to just get dropped back down. Like, I can't compete with an all Lego team with this team that I thought was really good but has an 83 overall average. That's me specifically. I thought I was going to do that. I'm not.
No, definitely. Those sort of big trades and big moves they are just massive statements to the rest of the Diamond League and the rest of the divisions going down as well. I completely agree with you saying that this is the biggest, transfer winter season that we've had in MFL. It's not just been a couple of big sales and transactions from like buying and selling. It's been lumps of players being involved in, feels like very sort of NBA style trades where it's about like 7 players are involved and it interconnects in an ecosystem. It's not a bit like football where it's like, there you go, here comes back. It's a lot more intricate, but making big statements and sort of by bringing players for the long term as well, saying that big statement.
In 18 hours, 16 hours, whatever it is, Dio traded for both Damian Mashewski and Lars Thijssen. That's 2 93 overall players. It happened in less than 24 hours.
Was that the one a couple of weeks ago? Wasn't it? Yeah.
It was.
Yeah,
it was just about a month ago.
Yeah, we commented on that, remember? Yeah, saying, that's like big moves coming in there.
But that's truly absurd, right? And when we talk about now or in the Discord, when we talk about the number of players that have come in from the drop that we did this past season 3 drop, and how much more diluted maybe the prize pool is, or that people are upset that the number of stone clubs haven't helped absorb the number of commons and uncommons. That's blind to the fact, proportionally, the number of Legos, the number of 83s, 84s, 88s, 89s, 90s has not gone up that much, right? Those numbers are still really, really small. So when you pull up the scouting tab and you look at the total number of 93s and you realize that the players that are rated 92 or higher, not just the concentration of where they are, but the number of them that have moved in the last 2 transfer windows, you're talking about like 75% of the best players in the game are on a new team right now.
Yeah. And I think we even commented on it maybe about a month ago, Calvinator. We were saying how a legendary market about 6 weeks ago, bearing in mind it is obviously during the season where, people are players are contracted to clubs and you really can't do that much movement anyway. But the sales, regardless, was pretty slow and lackluster. But then suddenly once, like you said, FantasyGaffer, some of the big developments such as positional familiarity and other aspects come out, and then we've got the transfer window inside with it and opening up with contracts. It's just been like bang, everything's happening, and it's great to see. And I think it's up and down the pyramid as well. We've had loads of movement at the top. We've also in those sort of gold, silver, bronze, iron. We've seen big. I think you said Calvinator, one of the trades. Maybe not for just one club, but Bucks getting 61 players in a trade with a club. That's obviously all of them can't go to that club, but still, it's maneuvers like that.
But
like that.
Everyone was forced to reshuffle their teams because of this position of familiarity, right? You suddenly had like this, I don't know, Cam you can't use anymore because he would get a big hit of -5 or something, so you really had to shuffle, and this really matters in the Diamond League way more, of course. If you're wasting a legendary, like if you waste a common or uncommon, that's maybe a bit, but if you're wasting a legendary, not playing this guy, of course you want to reshuffle that. And also, with FC Cincinnati, Parque Ibirapuera is now getting way more competitive, so it's also really healthy for the competition, I think, in the Diamond League. So, the transfer window, I think.
What you call the whoever it was that posted the average, the average or the highest, I guess, starting 11 of each of the 8 teams. I thought really did a nice job of highlighting exactly how good those teams are. Like when you have an average of 88 or 89 across like the top teams there, it makes the acquisition of some of those players that much more important. It's why you see somebody like Dio going out and buying Jose Ponte, even though he's 25 years old, when he's clearly one of the best players in the game, if not the best player in the game at his age. And I know one of the questions that we got earlier that we, if you don't mind jumping into now, right?
I think we're gonna jump into it now anyway.
Yeah,
so
we can.
But like, how
it.
do you value age when there is no progression yet, when there is no aging yet, when there is no pro rel yet? And I think that what we've seen is that it kind of falls into two categories. And if you're looking at 88 and higher players, I don't think age matters at all. I mean, you're going to see a natural drop in the total price that's being paid for these players, just because the teams that are acquiring them already are almost at saturation point. So you need someone like you who bought a diamond team but hasn't really jumped into the market yet to come back in and do that. We need those other licenses to be active and owned by managers that really want to compete at the top level. When you see that, you're going to see those prices come back up. But $1,400 American dollars for Ponte to go to Dio is, I think, a pretty big deal. And I think that's about the equivalent of $2,500 in the trade market 12 months ago.
Yeah.
When, for that to happen for a 25-year-old, I think would have been unfathomable a year ago. But we're looking at right now, one, we don't know how many more 0-dot seasons we're going to have. And you're getting no age, no progression. So a player who is one of the 5 best players in the game is an unquantifiable advantage. Yeah. Two, we don't know. There might be players who can play till they're 30 or 35 years old and have real value. They might not all have value for 10 years till they're age 35 in Diamond, but you could drop them back down to Platinum, you could drop them down to Gold, and they could be a difference maker. And at some point, we're going to reach this little nexus on your bell curve of aging and progression versus valuation in the marketplace versus value of your club versus the amount of rewards that you win from MFL, whether it's points or otherwise. And people are going to start dropping some of those players down because they're going to say, it's better for me to drop somebody like Ponte down when he's 31 and have him on my gold team and win that promotion and win 100% of those points than it is for him to be the third best, right midfielder on my platinum team or on my diamond team. We haven't gotten there yet, and I'm really excited to see what happens there. But the point of that little rant was, I think that age right now for those 88 and higher players, I don't think it matters. The market's pretty much what the market is. But I do think it matters a lot for everybody below that. And it particularly matters for the players that are high uncommons, low rares, and high commons, low uncommons. Because it doesn't take a lot for a price to suddenly be 50 to 150% higher than average. So if you're seeing a 17-year-old 68 sell for $35 or $40, or 16-year-old 68 sell for $35 or $40, and a regular 68 selling for 10, that's a huge price premium, right? You're not seeing that at the top level. You're not seeing some of these 16-year-old Legos go for $6,000 or $7,000 when regular Legos at that same overall are selling for $1,250 to $1,500. By the way, none of this is financial advice, and I love that you guys do that. I love that you guys do that, but to me, none of this is financial advice because I just view this as fantasy, and every version of fantasy has some amount of dollar that you're putting on it. Whether you're playing the official Fantasy Premier League game where you have to build your roster with 100 pounds, whether you're playing a draft game, whether it's baseball, football, basketball, where you're in an auction and you get a budget of $260 fake dollars to buy your players. It's all valuation based, right? If somebody wants to come in and spend a bunch of money playing this game, what I'm saying to them, obviously it's not financial advice any more than me saying to somebody spending $70 plus $10 a month to stream FIFA is financial advice. To me, those two things are directly analogous. And I do all of my work the same way. And that's why MFL is just kind of naturally transitioned from the other stuff that I was doing.
Well, this is another episode where we can really use this disclaimer, no financial advice. But luckily we do that always. But actually later on with the Dirk dilemmas, we're going to talk about overpriced, underpriced. So I'm really curious about your takes there. But I think first I want to also, in terms of good deals, or is this a good deal? So about this big trade of Ronin getting this 91, Frederik Ruek, for Bitsordamus getting 3 Legos, 89, 87, 85, and an 81 rare. Do you think that is a good trade there? Or is it worth such a high-end legendary? Are they worth 3 other legendaries? What do you think is the case there?
How do you say Frederick's last name?
Ruek, I would say.
Ruek?
So it sounds, a Swiss
I'd be
French.
saying rug.
Rug.
Rueg, yeah.
Rueg.
Rug. As long as you get the egg in there, EWG, we'll do egg. Let's call him egg.
Egg. He seems like French-Swiss. Swiss-French, or I would say.
All right.
So, but okay, whatever. But in this trade, what do you think? who got like the good deal here, or do you think it's really worth like 3 legendaries to get a one high end Lego, very high?
I mean, you can look at my trade history and you can look at my negotiating history, and you're clearly come to the quick assumption that I'd rather be on the Bistradamus side of that deal for a lot of reasons. But I think that it's hard to say it's not also a good deal for Ronan, because Ronan's not operating blind here. This isn't somebody coming in who's like a Web3 NFT degen who's just saying,
No,
like,
he's
hey,
not at all, is he?
where are we? This guy's higher than that guy. This guy's rarer than that guy. This is a very well calculated, and I hope I captured it well in the writing that I did, but this is a very well calculated decision that is not just intended to be the acquisition of a talent, but it's intended to maximize the talent that's already existing on Ronan's roster. And if you've identified that you have a surplus that you simply can't benefit from, you're smart to trade it away to maximize a position where that's immediately going to impact your starting 11. It's going to help you get to the preferred tactics that you want, the preferred formation that you want, and the preferred rotation that you want. Since we don't have in-game substitutions yet, we know you have to have 1.5 to 2 players at each position if you have a preferred set of tactics. So I do think Ronan overpaid in terms of the market. I think Ronan would say, yeah, of course I overpaid. compared to the market.
The quote here from him in the Balls Discord is, yeah, for sure, I overpaid like crazy, is what he's put. So, I agree with you, Gaffer.
Well, like, you're saying you want to be the player that's getting, you want to be the manager, the agent that's getting the 3 players. Man, I also want to be Ronan. I want to be in the position where I'm like, I just got like all this talent, and I'm just going to give you like these guys I'm not using, and you're going to give me this guy? Yeah, let's do that.
Oh, Ronan, you got a spare one? Any spares for us down below?
I think as I say, I think Dio also had such deals, like where we looked at, he got like these 293 left wingers, and he also traded them for like a 92 and a 90, I think, together. So it's like, it seems, but yeah, it makes sense from this perspective that you really have the surplus, what you say, and if you can get this really good quality guy that can make a difference. From a gameplay point of view, it makes sense. Maybe from a value point of view, you're overpaying a bit, but yeah, that's a price if you want quality. So I think we saw similar with Dio's trades there.
I was thinking we go on a couple of dilemmas, Calvo, do you reckon?
Yes. So a couple of dilemmas and then some final questions. So, well, we were already talking about this a little bit, about overpriced, underpriced. And Gaffer, you also talked about some like younger players or older players and age in general. So would you say that right now in the market, 16-year-olds, do you think they're overpriced or underpriced?
Watch what you say here, mate.
Yes.
We throw an explicit tag on this podcast.
Yes,
right?
Not financial advice and not...
Yeah. Please don't imprison me. Listen, I think the most important thing to consider when you're selling 16-year-olds is...
yeah, go on.
Yeah. I think they're undervalued in the market right now. But I don't think they're all undervalued. When I just bought one yesterday, I think I paid like 19. I don't even remember what I paid anymore.
Yeah, I saw that. I think we got good value out of that.
Yeah, it's like a 68 or 69 overall, 16-year-old for like around $20.
Yeah, and good there.
Yeah, for me, that's my sweet spot in terms of buying and selling. I've looked over both your agencies. I think that's probably right in the same range where you all are. Like $20 is not a thing I think about for too long. If I see a player and I'm like, that's good value, and I live in the market enough that I'm not going to ever go, oh man, I really lost $3 on that one. No, I'd rather just buy the player. And if I lost the $3, I lost the $3. Oh well.
Yeah.
But where the 16-year-olds are not great value, and I'm not trying to slate anybody, ask whatever you want for your players. I love seeing the market grow. There's a pretty big disconnect, I think, between 16 and 17. And I think there's a huge disconnect between 17 and 18 because we do not know what progression is going to look like yet. Yeah. And that's not me trying to like juice the price on my 18-year-olds, but you can't tell me that a 75 overall 18-year-old is worth 50% of what a 70 overall 16-year-old is. Because in 2 years, that 16-year-old might not even be at that 75 level.
Yeah.
And they'll be 18. So if you as the seller are trying to price in all of that, where's the value to me as the buyer? There's just nothing there. And that's one of the minor pitfalls, that one of the little trip ups in the market right now, is because we don't know. Everyone is really holding on to those kids. Everyone's really worried about giving up something. And this was another thing from the Discord. The idea that we're going to see progression, we're going to see that rolled out, we're going to have to beta that in real time, and then after 2 or 3 seasons of ODOT seasons, the devs are going to roll back everybody. And what they're going to have to do there is they're going to have to create an entire ghost set of progression metrics and allocate them to all 36,000 plus players. Because if that's not what they're doing, and they're showing us how those players are really going to develop those ages, listen, dude, I'm smart enough. I'm going to know who all those players are. You guys are smart enough. You're going to know who all those players are. What does that do to the market if we just go out and tear that market up? So they're smart. The devs are smart. They're not going to let that happen.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah.
But for right now, we don't know. We have no data on what that looks like. Right?
Yeah, as a seller, you're trying to almost selling those younger players. You're trying to sell a dream really to the buyer. I mean, he's such a young player. He's gonna be massive, but at the end of the day, it's unknown. You don't know. Yeah, so I agree.
Yes, no, definitely. And I also had one about 19-year-olds, but maybe we can skip that. It's there's also a big disconnect, I think. 18, 19, and what we know is that I think the maximum progression is 15 overall points, or something like that.
I asked this question because I thought it was 18 overall points, and I forget if it was Yax or Lucas that responded and said, we have not ever formally said there is a maximum amount of progression.
I think they've just said that 15 levels is 2%, 0.2, was it 12 levels, something like that. They've said a percentage to get to a particular level.
That's right.
What percentage chance a player has to reach that amount of upgrades? That's what they've given. But like you said, they've not given every player will go up by 2. That was also, I think, stated.
1. They said every player will go up by 1.
For sure 1 or 2. Okay.
For sure 1, yeah.
I thought it was for sure 2. Yeah, either way, yeah.
So, but if you're looking at it, right, if the overall percentage of players that are going to go up by more than 1 is 98%, I mean, it's default. I mean, more or less, right? Default 2. But what I don't know, sorry to talk over you guys. I really apologize. This stuff just lives in my brain.
Content, mate.
Just not going to yell about this for no reason. People who are going to stare at me and be like, man, I wish you'd shut up 40 minutes ago. But the whole thing is the build is really important. I appreciate the build. But at the end of the day, right, when we're staring at these players and we're saying is it a 75% chance that they go up? Is it a 50% chance that they go up? Is it a 30% chance that they go up? Great. Are you ever going to give us any insight into the distribution of players in terms of the percentage that they have? And are you ever going to give us any insight into the overlap of where they're playing and how those two things intersect? Because if a player has a maximum progression of 25 points and they've coded that somewhere in the back end and we never get to see it, and that player is stuck at a stone license because it's a 20-year-old 64 overall that just gets jammed on a stone team. What they're going to see, and what I hope they're prepared to just ignore, is a bunch of people pissed off because they're looking at the back end of progression and they're going, no one's ever actually progressed more than 11 points. It's well, there was a whole universe of players that could have gotten really good, but the way that you all chose to manage them limited their total progression. This is not on us, the team. We did exactly what we said we were going to do.
Yeah.
This is on you, the managers.
Yeah, that's another element of player progression, of course. It will be, in the dev updates you said, right? They're going to work on it, so it's really interesting to see how also this will be communicated then. Okay, I think we have to move on with more dilemmas. Well, clubs. That's a big one. Clubs, do you think right now? Overvalued, undervalued?
Clubs are undervalued, but the problem with them being... Sorry, I'll just stop. Clubs are undervalued.
Undervalued.
You can say one argument. Why
you get one sentence afterwards.
One sentence.
The problem with clubs being undervalued right now is we don't know what 100% rewards look like, so we don't know what the value of a club moving up or dropping down, the impact is going to be. And until we know that, they are always going to be undervalued.
Yeah. Good.
Yes, good point.
I agree with that. Good point, yes. High rares, 83, 84.
Any particular position or just like generally overall?
Generally,
Just
well,
take the
I
average
think
in general, yeah.
I believe I always see them listed for like between 200, 300, and I think like, why are they so low? Well, legendaries, just because it's a purple color, suddenly you get like this premium.
I think they are. I think they're undervalued, and I think they're undervalued for something we've talked about a lot today, which is people don't know what progression looks like, so they're hesitant, and they see Calvinator. To your point, they see the purple color, and they go, "A guy who's 85 has a higher chance of becoming 99 than a guy who's 84." We don't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think 19-year-olds, we talked about it already. So right and left backs, I'm asking this because I feel like they were pretty... The right back market, I also talked in a little chat with a Surgeonator about it. It feels like it's pretty hot. So right back, left backs, do you think under, over?
I think they're actually valued appropriately, except right backs, left backs with high speed, I think are overvalued still.
High speed.
Yeah, that meta was a couple of seasons ago. Especially
The pace was very valued, back then.
Do you
pace
guys...
did play a role.
Yeah, can I ask you guys some questions? I don't know what time you all have to go.
Yeah, no,
I have
go
nothing
on,
to do till the
ask
Super Bowl
us
kicks off. So
ask-
I'm going to keep you on here for 4 hours, and then you can edit down to like the best 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Do you guys think that? I want to give like a lot of credit to the developer of the MFL Player site, because that's a really useful tool. I have not personally seen a lot of people in negotiations pegging the value of their players to that. But in part, I wonder if that's because of the meta. Like 2 seasons ago, right backs and left backs that had high pace were going for like 2x what they are right now, right? Yeah. So like, how much are the two of you using that tool, and how much are you contextualizing the prices that you see on that tool against other data sources like market price, floor, and the Airtable?
Yeah, I'll jump in first with this. I think when it comes to buying players or selling players, I think I'm in the boat that you have to use a lot of different sources of information in confluence to try and make a decision. So something like Ali Coleman's, MFL player tool, for example, MFL info tool, are great as a one source of info. But I like going down the Airtable. We'll give it shout outs. The Airtable is looking at some data, and you can clearly see in the Airtables when sort of market shifts happen and try and ignore some of that noise and what's actually sort of mostly relevant. But I think a mixture of the suggestions that you said there, Gaffer, in terms of the tools available, the Airtable, and then looking a bit in the market and doing your own piece, that's how I go about try and find a price that I will buy players at, and then price that I will sell players at. It's got to be like not an average, but a confluence of different decisions together. That's probably.
But really you do look at the MFL player that Ali made, right?
I'll look at it. I think I'll probably use it as like maybe the first indicator, or I'll just look at floor value, and maybe I'll look at floor value. Let's have a look at some of the Airtable. 2 or 3 either side of the average overall, 1 or 2 either side of the age, and then look at and then filter by the last 2 months, maybe 3 months of marketplace transactions, and then try and get an understanding of that, do some trends, bit of analysis, that sort of piece. But I would solely ever rely on one of the sources of information or tools as a complete guidance.
No, that's fair enough. Calvinator, before I turn the floor over to you, as I've now usurped hosting your show for 2 questions, yes. I also have to say, like, as your fake host for a second and pretending you're the guest, I need to applaud you on your hair, because I'm eminently jealous of the coif that you've got going on, and I wish I could like totally rock that still. But yeah, what are your thoughts on like how you value players and where you use like MFL player in that?
I think I'm using the tool mostly to check like how they would be rated in other positions, but in terms of pricing, it's just I spent loads of time in the marketplace and SalesBot, and just by putting all that info in my head, I kind of get a feeling for like, this is like a good deal or this is not a good deal. I often do those filters like all the 72 and a filter from lowest price, so I kind of get an idea of the floor prices. And also I do some, for example, 80 physical, 80 defense, 60 pace, 50 passing. Like I said it, and then I put like lowest price and then see what's available.
Which of those filters do you use the most?
I think
which of the attribute filters do you find that you're using the most? Is it stamina, so that they maintain like highest
I
overall?
Like to, since physical became important, I like to put like a minimum for like, let's say it's a rare, I put a minimum of like 60, 70 pace plus physical, and then I play around with the other stats. I think there should be a baseline. of all my players that have decent pace and decent physical. And
I'll try
then
and pick
I filter
65 physical for me as like my baseline. That's what I try and go for.
I think, but it's for me, it's just way more intuition, just like knowing the markets from all.
That's really interesting, though. I had somebody break off a trade because the guy had a guy whose physical was like 50, and they were like, "Yeah, I don't target anyone under 60." I was like, "But they're outstanding." Like, I didn't need to say it. I was just like, "That's fine, thank you, mate. Have a good day." But in my head, I was like, "Really? That is the thing that broke it." Like, if the physical had been 10 points higher, which by the way would have barely raised the overall because of the position the player was, but that's what did it for them. And I think it's very much in line with what the two of you just said.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean it got more important because of the fatigue and also it started to become more important in duels, I think, and just like defenders, how they. I also saw, like, for example, loads of defenders high defense but low physical. That was like a turn off for me. I need to have also high physical there, especially for a defender. So but it's just more getting a feeling, I guess. That's my approach.
Yeah.
Man, I'm not ignoring your question. There's just a 64 overall left back who is 20 years old who just got listed for $2, not to exactly timestamp where we are. And they have a 72 physical, a 65 defense. And I'm literally looking at this player and thinking about what you just said, right? No, so I've adopted this thing right now where, like, I'm not buying players just to buy them, even if I think they're good value, but I've capped it. Anybody who is like under a certain age or certain overall, I just won't buy at all because I want new players who are coming in to be able to buy some of them and be able to benefit from that. So, like, if either of you go and buy it, I'm not going to hold it against you, but I'm really hoping that one of our new accounts sees that and goes, "Oh, a 20-year-old left back who's 64 for $2. Like, that's a way that I can buy and support my Stone Club and get elevated," right? And those kinds of wins in the marketplace are so overvalued. Like, they are so integral to somebody having a good experience here that me making $2 on flipping that, like, it's not just unjustifiable. Like, it actively hurts the total value of my experience in the game to build on that. Sorry, not to go off on like that rant. Could I ask you just to ask your question again, Calvinator, and we can probably cut all that out. But who's the producer on this thing? Do we have a producer over here somewhere?
Well, I also. I kind of just bought the guy. So, thank you.
Nice. Now you have to leave it all in. Now you got to see how the sausage is made.
I was thinking about that. I was thinking, this question, I might not put it in because it's going over quite a bit. I went, nah, I'm definitely keeping it in now.
I had to buy it. You can
the
now
story,
borrow...
Calver hates the new users.
That's right.
No. You can loan it from me. I'll give you a good premium. 1% too.
We haven't even talked about loans yet, man. Like, realistically, that's like a whole different episode because, like, loans and the way the market flows with loans is entirely different.
But we have one final question, I would say, because
our guest questions.
Our guest question, So first, the question from our last guest, Vogel, and he asked, "How do you prepare your clubs for matches? So as a manager, how do you do that?"
I mean, do I have to answer that? Because that's like the most proprietary thing, man. Like,
well, maybe can you give us a little hint?
Maybe a flavor.
Yeah,
a flavor.
It's a lot of performance-enhancing drugs in the water bottles, and no, I mean, like, I'm setting up my 4 teams all differently right now. So I think that's probably the most important part, right? You should use every part of the buffalo. You need to take whatever it is that you have in your agency. You need to be experimenting right now with loans to figure out how you are benefiting from that, if you enjoy that part of the process or not. You need to be building your teams out in a way where you're identifying if they are standalone or if they're meant to be feeder teams. And then you need to be setting your tactics and your rosters to correspond with that outlook. That's not to say you can't pivot next year. But for right now, the way that I'm personally choosing to build that out is I'm using each of my teams as standalone objects. I'm building out those rosters based on goals that I have for each of the licenses. So for my Kogenhaves team in Denmark, I want that to be a Danish team. I want to take that team full of Danes and I want to get them from iron into gold. I don't have any aspirations beyond that because realistically, I'm not going to invest any more money in it, but that's my goal for that team. Whereas with my Grand Isle team in Strasbourg, my gold team, promotion to platinum was my goal before the last set of drops. Now surviving is. So what I'm trying to do is figure out my tactics for how I best prevent goals, because I think that given the composition of my roster, absent any additional investment, preventing goals is going to be my best chance of surviving.
That's great. Yeah, so you have like a goal, and then from that you make your, let's say, tactic or prepare for the matches, and
that's exactly
nice.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Have you guys found, by the way, that there's been a huge difference in your returns when you have set specifically? I want to ask you specifically about attacking down the flanks and or having a central or wide set for that particular tactic?
Not yet. No.
No. Not really, because at the moment I play not wide as in like wingers formation at the moment, or focusing down flanks and tactics. I did when I play Herta's team yesterday with my Wyverns, or the day before. Yesterday with my Wyverns. He plays a 4-4-2 defensive, and I purposely put out a 4-3-3 against it, and I won 1-0. But the stats weren't on my side apart from possession. So, and I felt a bit like a Unai Emery masterclass after that, because I built up that tactics and formation specifically for that.
How'd you have your shot set? Were you down to like fewer long shots and things like that? Do you recall?
Just give away these tactics. I can't be doing
Hey, Lee, you asked me. I mean, this is how this started.
We're just helping the community out here when they play you. I think
the community's doing just fine against me.
I did actually have take more long shots.
Okay.
I had on take more long, which usually actually I'm not a big fan of. I'm usually out on balance, but I was actually, I know I'm lying completely. I actually dominated him in every stat department. I lied on every stat department, 61% possession, and to give so I completely whooped him, and then a couple more 12 hours later, he's with another bunch of results going against him, is selling up. So sorry, mate.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we all had our hand in that.
Yeah, that was so brilliant answer, and your last contribution. Well, I guess penultimate, because you've got to say bye at some point as well.
This is the Mookie Betts trade. We're going to talk about that for another hour and 40 minutes. Because listen, I understand that we had to offload David Price's salary, but I still think we could have gotten back something better than Alex Verdugo. And at the end of the day, the total value of like Mookie being a franchise player is never going to be. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay, there you go. You got it in. Your question to whoever our next guest is, right here, right now. Gaffer, what do you want to know from that individual?
Oh, that's a good one. I would want to know from anybody that plays MFL what they are doing to educate or recruit somebody new into joining the game, and what they think the most important selling feature is that they're identifying when they do that.
I absolutely love that as a question. I love that.
Nice. So what are they doing to recruit new players? And what's the best selling point, say? Like the best, nice.
And at this point as well, I usually tell people, if you get this far on the podcast, we're going to put a hashtag out. And Gaffer, I'll let you create this hashtag. Hashtag and then whatever. And that's going to be the hashtag. If people get this far, they put that in the general Discord so we know they've got this far in the podcast.
Hashtag join me on Blue Sky.
Join you on hashtag join me on Blue Sky. See, for me is where I work. Blue Sky is a satellite imagery procurement company. So that means I'm just like satellite imagery.
Yeah, actually, this is pretty valid point, because X/Twitter is not like, it's kind of deteriorating. So maybe as MFL we should all pivot to Blue Skies.
Hashtag join me on Blue Sky. Right. Heard it here, folks.
Great.
If I see that in the general chat, we know everyone's got this far. But Cabbage, you got anything you want to add to this, or we?
No, I think we had a great loads of good content, loads of good conversations here, and very valuable info. So great episode for me.
100%. So yeah, we'll wrap up episode 24 of the When Dirt Cast there. I want to say a massive thank you, first of all, to FantasyGaffer for your time and being our guest. It's been absolutely amazing. I hope you've enjoyed yourself as well.
Oh, very much. Thank you. And happy to come back anytime.
Awesome. Yeah, so FantasyGaffer's all of his amazing write-ups and insights. We'll leave the links to all that in the show notes. So if you're listening on Spotify or wherever, drop down and you can view the link to all of them. But he's also quite good at popping them in the Discord general chat as well. As always, if you're not already following, reviewing, that sort of stuff, go do that. We love hearing all the reviews and all the kind words people are saying about the podcast week in, week out. And on that note, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you this time next week for an episode of the When Dirt Cast. Thank you for listening. Bosh.
Boom.